Now what I'm going to do is kind of jump into the more advanced features, which are a very unique thing in Excel that we've tried to build into these advanced analytics. So Excel, you can automate certain functionality in the background with these things called macros, and we've included those in this advanced analytics to provide different features that I'm going to show you now. And these different features are available based on different packaging levels, which we'll be communicating with everybody at a later time. So to the right side here, these are all the different various features that we can do with macros. So reporting, dashboard, refresh rate, these are all basically the essentials. Okay, this doesn't have the macros, but the macro functionality includes like group data by, manage slicers, navigates, and all this sort of stuff. So I'll jump through each one of these in the actual tool itself. Okay, so how do you get the tool from SharePoint downloaded onto your system with the macros? Like I said, in your SharePoint, there's the option to click these three dots, and download a copy. When you do that, it will download the file with all the macros inside of them. Okay, and then you can play around with this on your desktop. There's one very key note to know. The macro functionality is not validated. So when you're using these macro functionalities, it should be looked at as more of an internal tool to be able to look at deeper things, to share information internally, to look at different reports, kind of customizing the way that you look at it, instead of something that should be reported on, with more formally. Okay, so this is more of like the internal thing, but I'm telling you the macro functionality brings out features that are going to change the way I think that clients can use these tools for a managerial side. So let me jump into it. I'm going to cover each one of these features, as I said. So the first one we're going to show is this group data by. Okay. So if I jump into this file, which I've downloaded off SharePoint, it has all the macros in it. If I go to, say, the audits created, closed, and cycle time tab, you'll see here now up top all of these different buttons and things that have shown up. What we're going to talk about quickly here is the group data by section. So on some tabs, you will see this orange box that has different buttons that you can click. And these buttons are different fields from the audit process. So we're looking at the same charts that we did in the other version, which is how many were created, closed, and cycle time. But now what if we wanted to know by the audit lead how many were created? Well, if you click this little button here, you'll see that the tool instantly changes to sorting or grouping everything first by the audit lead. So now we can see by audit lead how many audits have been created over time. Christina's here, looks like she's created 16, right? Marilyn has created 6. And we can expand this to say, okay, if we look at Christina, she created 16. And if we open up the pivot items using the plus and minus buttons, we can see by year how many were created, and even a further dive into the month itself. So instead of maybe audit lead, we'd like to look at audit type. So we click the button here, and instantly we can see by audit type how many were created. So we can see, how many external ones were created, how many internal ones, which ones were regulatory inspections. Maybe by audit category is interesting. So was it an internal audit, a supplier audit? So these little buttons here can change all of the reports that are on the tab that it's with to be grouped by these different fields. If you want to change it back to the year and month, you just click by year and month here, and it changes it back to the year and the month, which is similar to how you would have it when you've downloaded off the SharePoint. This group data by is even more powerful because you can do multiple grouping. So say, for example, we'd like to see by audit type, then by audit lead, then by year, which audits were created, closed, and what the average cycle time is. So if I click this, you'll see that the charts change automatically, all of the table, reports, charts, and now you have this huge detailed report that you can say, by audit type, so internal ones, who was our audit lead and which year were they created and how many were created. Further on that, once you're here, maybe you'd like to filter for an audit lead specific. So we'd like to see maybe Christina only. So using our slicers down the left side, we can filter everything that's on the immediate worksheet to see what's happening with just her. So this group data by is available on specific tabs to basically deep dive and change all of the reporting that you're looking at for a specific worksheet. So same thing, like say the second task created and closed. We have the same thing. So by audit lead, audit type, by secondary task type, secondary task ID, to be able to basically click and see, oh, how many pre-task types have we done, or how many task types based on the secondary task type. Okay, so very powerful. It allows you to basically do all this different reporting with just a click of a button instead of having to combine data sets and do, like I said, all those other features. One thing I'm going to show here is this expand and collapse buttons. So these two guys here, remember I was going through and showing that in pivot tables, we can expand individual items such like this to get down deeper, and the charts obviously will represent what's showing in the chart or in the table. These buttons here can do this expand and collapse by just clicking the buttons. So if you want to collapse everything all the way to the left, you can click this orange minus. You see it collapses everything on the worksheet over to the far left. If we need to expand it all the way to the right, you can click the orange plus button, and you'll see it expands all of the fields open all the way to the right side, the rightmost field. If we need to go one by one, we can use the green one here. So you can -1, jumps back one field to here. If we click minus again, it'll bring us all the way back to the left side collapsed. Or the opposite way, if you need to deep dive, you can do the plus buttons to expand it to the right. Okay, so the group data by and these expand collapse, very, very powerful to basically change what you're looking at to get way more detail than what's there in the original version. All of these slicers here down the left side too can become a little cumbersome. So what we've done with one of these buttons is this hide all slicers. So if you'd like to, you can click this and it will take all of the slicers down the left side and basically hide them to make it easier to kind of see or navigate. If you want to open a specific slicer or filter, all of these toggle buttons here are connected to one of those slicers. So if we'd like to just open up the audit status one, you can click your toggle button here. We could filter on just the open processes, and you'll see everything's filtered. And a very key thing here is that you can see instantly that our audit status is filtered. The button will change orange with a little F to indicate that you do have some sort of filter that's been applied. Other thing is like audit type. Okay, we can change this one. We'll filter on just audit type. If I take this off, we can see now audit type is also orange. Okay, so little navigational tools to make it easier to visualize and work with the worksheets. Up top here, along the top, I'll cover each one of these buttons. The first one I'm going to cover is this clear all filters. So if you have filters applied, whether you've come into the actual table itself and maybe you've selected a specific filter here, you've changed a filter on another report on the same worksheet. Okay, I'm just applying some random filters here. And you come in, you can see that there's some oranges here. It might not be showing everything. If you'd like to clear all the filters, you just click this little button here. Give it a second. It removes all the filters applied to the entire worksheet. So you're back to seeing all the data that's there. And then you can continue on with opening up a slicer, performing it, or continuing on with filtering the headers. Another cool functionality is this navigate system. So unless you want to, continuously kind of move left and right here to tab to different worksheets, If you click Navigate System, it'll bring up basically just a listing of all the tabs in order, and you can double click on a specific one, and it will take you to that specific worksheet. Other things here, I'm going to jump into our All Audits report quickly to show you this other functionality. So these little buttons here, these orange ones, wrap text, show all labels, subtotals. So sometimes when you're looking at this table here, especially the All Audits report, you'll see some of the data here is kind of truncated, so you can't see everything. Instead of trying to reassign, to change the size of the columns, all this sort of thing, we have a little button here to wrap text. And you'll see instead of, having to mess around with sizing, it will basically wrap all the text in the table to make sure that you can see all of the text. Okay. So you can take that off to make sure that it's easier to look at sometimes if it's not all, wrapped, it becomes a little too big. Or click it to see all the information in the cells themselves. Next thing is show all labels. This is just a feature in pivot tables. So you'll see here down the left side, we have open repeated a bunch of times because all of these highlighted processes are all open. Show all labels will always be selected because I think it looks better and we believe it looks more professional and makes more sense when you're looking at a table report. But if I took show all labels off, you'll see that it doesn't repeat the label, okay, for the different ones. So just a feature in case you'd like to see it with or without the options there. Now subtotals would apply subtotals to everything. So if I click subtotals, this one worksheet, it's going to take a second, but you'll see now there is a subtotal applied to every single field. Okay, and the subtotals subtotal all of the different data on the right side. So this report, I wouldn't maybe suggest doing subtotals because it doesn't come down to meeting too much. But when you're on specific worksheets, such as say created and closed, so I'll jump over here. You'll see here we have subtotals. Okay, I'll jump this back down to year and month. And this is why I kind of want to show you guys this live, is because the ability to change this and look at different things is as easy as clicking a few buttons. So here we have year and month. We see that we have subtotals for the year. If we'd like to take subtotals off, we just click this button. Subtotals are removed to take away that excessive detail if needed. And if we want to see them, we just click the button subtotals and it will subtotal all of the fields, all of the parent fields in the reports. Okay, so what I've just shown you guys, there's a lot of, these are all features that are basically going to aid in the way you look and interact with the data. One other one which might help you, especially with these bigger reports, is this show hide columns. So when you're looking at, say, a report like this, we've included pretty much all of the fields that are associated with an audit process. If, for example, somebody doesn't want to look at specific fields, like specific columns, say these ones aren't that important for the report that I'm trying to build, instead of copying and pasting this to a new workbook and then deleting those deleting those columns, we can use this show hide columns. I'll click this button. You have the option to hide or unhide columns. We're going to hide columns. You see we get this little range selector. I'm just going to select the headers of the columns I don't want to see. I'll click OK. And the report instantly hides those columns and allows you to now see the report maybe in a different way than you saw originally. So instead of building 10 different reports with some columns missing, some included, we've allowed this little macro button here to allow you to hide and unhide the columns with just a click of a button. So if you have to unhide them again, you just click unhide. It gives you a listing of all the columns that you've hidden. You can select specific ones that you want to unhide and click unhide, or you can just click unhide them all, and then you'll see they're all returned back into the report. Now, one other thing that's very unique is that in SoLabs, each user is mapped to specific roles and managers and department heads. With the macros, we've been able to actually add this button up here to filter on those roles and users. So if I click this button here, this is a little more detailed. So when we look at the filtering, we have to look over here as who's it going to filter on. So it's going to filter on the audit lead. So on our audit lead, we can choose to filter on the organization that they're associated with, the division, the department, the sub-department, job title, department head, manager, or even the specific user. So if we're looking here, we want to say, well, let's look how many audits are currently been created based on an audit lead who is part of quality. So we select quality, we add it to the right side, we click apply filters. And you'll see the table is filtered now so that all of these people here that are included in the audit lead are coming or associated or mapped to the quality department. So this is extremely powerful, especially with stuff like, say, created, closed, and cycle time. Sometimes there's always a report that's needed, say, how many is this department creating and closing? How many is that department, associated with in terms of audits? You can use filter roles and users. And as again, you can filter on a department, sub-department, job title, whether you're trying to look at specific managers. Okay, so this is based on the audit lead. So if we click, Jennifer Beckett here, this is one of the managers. Okay, if we apply filters, we'll be able to see, based on Jennifer Beckett, the people that report to her, this is the resulting information based on those audit leads that report to Jennifer Beckett. So we can see there's only been one created, none have been closed. And we can even use this group data by to see who that person would be. So Alan River reports Jennifer Beckett, and we've done that through just the filtering directly through the macros and the buttons. So we'll come back in. We can clear all filters and roles, all filters on the roles and users. And again, it returns you back to the full, all the data that's was basically included when you downloaded it.